All right, thank you, Alex and Pete, for your time. Let's start off with a self-intro.
Peter, one of the directors here at Bradfield BadgerFox. Bit of my background, I grew up in the eastern suburbs, went to school at Cranbrook. When I left school, I did a marketing degree, went into a big franchise, and then started BadgerFox in 2018 before buying into the bigger business here.
I'm Alex, I'm also a director at Bradfield BadgerFox. Went to Trinity and finished at St Andrews. Went to uni, did a degree there as well, and then also started a large franchise in Double Bay to start my real estate career.
It's obviously been a crazy last 3 years. Since COVID hit in 2020, it was always unsure until now. What's happened in the last few years, you reckon?
So basically, as COVID hit, 2021, the market went super strong. Interest rates dropped. A lot of people had disposable income as well, and they were putting it into property. 2022, the interest rates were rising, and in most places, things were kind of dropping off. Here in the east, it ramped up even further, funnily enough.
Why do you think that happened?
Mainly because a lot of the people here, they're not borrowing money, they're buying it cash, unencumbered, and the properties that they're buying, a lot of the time people don't sell, so they're kind of naming their price and, a lot of the time getting it.
There's also been a big lack of stock, so that's obviously driven it a lot further as well. And people that have sold, there's been that sort of backlog of buyers and people not wanting to sell unless they can actually see where their next move is. So with that lack of stock, it sort of stopped that snowball from turning because there's so many buyers. We couldn't actually fit that puzzle and solve it for the people we already had, let alone the vendors that we were trying to service to show them where they could go if they were to explore an offer or explore going to market.
So, this year it's almost finished. Like everyone overall in Sydney, it's meant to be a slow year, with interest rates still going up, all these unsures in the whole world. What's happening in the East like this year?
It's still strong. We're still listing and selling all the way up until Christmas. If someone needs to do a deal on Christmas Day, we'll be there. But coming back to what Alex said, it's the lack of stock that has been driving it mainly. You know it firsthand because we'll call you when there's an off-market property and buyers are getting to these properties before they're even hitting the market. There are no new plots of land coming up in the eastern suburbs, and that's why there's good value in it.
You guys done so well this year.
Thanks.
Talk about the few big deals and what happened.
We've been having a really good run. Basically, quite a few properties on Vaucluse Road, obviously 48 Vaucluse Road. We did a deal with you on that one. That was for over 36 million.
How much is it worth now?
A touch more. Well, a lot's changed in the past couple of months. For example, we sold 63 Vaucluse Road for $24 million at auction, 4 people bidding on it. The neighbouring property, very, very similar, sold for $9 million less 2 months ago.
So that came the article about how much the bridge view's worth.
Yeah. It wasn't even the full bridge, it was probably 3/4 of the bridge view. But just to be able to see the city skyline and 3/4 of the bridge, it's appreciated.
So what's the reason? Obviously, you're going to say it's a good agent.
Naturally.
But besides that, what do you think? What was the difference? Was it time difference or?
Coming up to November and December, a lot of people mentally in their head, they want to lock something in before the new year. There's those buyers out there, and there's also people that have missed out on other properties in the area, and then they'll generally pay what they need to secure the property before the new year.
Yeah. What about the other ones like 31 Vaucluse? It was with multiple agents and you guys got a big price on it.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
It's a good question. I think we just ran a slightly different process. We had obviously the heat from the other property we sold down the road at 48. Pete and I work really closely with buyers as well, which is a bit of a difference that we run in our team. So we work on strong relationships, not just with our vendors, but with buyers agents, with strong buyers out there in the market. So when we started that process, we were able to engage some really good interest early on, and then we use that to leverage and push further and put the price up that little bit more and ultimately get a happy client that got a price within their expectations at the end.
So there's obviously a lot of Chinese buyers these days. I'd say almost very close to half in particular areas like Bellevue Hill, Vaucluse and areas. In your career, what's changed with these Chinese buyers from 7-8 years ago, 5 years ago and now?
I think there's a greater appreciation for what the eastern suburbs has. They've got some pretty strong values around education, so a lot of them gravitate towards our better schools. That's important for them to make sure their kids get a really good education. There's historically family members that have moved here in the past. Also, there's a better knowledge base around the right places to live in Sydney. Like if Peter said I wanted to go move to LA tomorrow, I'd have no idea where to tell him where to move, but I'm sure he'd know someone that could point him in the right directions of, look, you should live here because there's a good school, there's good value, there's a nice place to be, it's secure. So I think as time's progressed, The Chinese market has become more educated around what the eastern suburbs has, and I think that's why, as time's gone on, we get a lot of that market in the eastern suburbs.
Probably 90% of my clients come from lower upper North Shore, inner west. When they started and came to Australia, that was the place to be, educated by their friends, but that's all changing now massively.
And what are some of the comments that you're getting on why they're moving here, like to the east?
Obviously, they have the deep pockets to buy here. At the same time, they realise if their kid's not too big, they can still change the school. It's still early enough. Or the most important thing, which is the great thing about Australia, is there's no capital gain tax on owner-occupied properties, and they need to benefit that. And obviously, the capital growth in the east is incomparable
and
with anywhere else.
Do you think some of your clients have used other areas outside the east as a stepping stone when they come to Sydney, and then they come to the eastern suburbs when they build
a lot of them,
well?
it's not about they didn't financially was ready or were ready for the east. It was more their friends lived around Chatswood or Burwood, and they were just told that's the best place to be. But as time passed, they realised, eastern suburbs is the best in Australia. So it's almost like a virus. One friend comes, they bring 3 friends bring 9 friends, 9 bring 20. It's just keep going. The news keeps getting very political about Chinese buying properties in the east, lifting prices, saying they're paying big money. What's your thoughts on that?
In our experience, the Chinese buyers that we meet, they've generally got deeper pockets than a lot of the so-called local buyers out there. And when it comes to a lot of the prestige property, we've found that it's a lot of the Chinese clients that are buying those ones. Like when we open up 31 Vaucluse Road, I think there were probably about 80% Chinese purchases coming through that one. At the auction for 48 Vaucluse Road, I think upwards of 80% registered were Chinese. 63 Vaucluse Road, I think they were all Chinese, bar one person bidding there.
There's a greater importance for the Chinese market for the views. They hold a much larger value to see the Harbour Bridge than a local buyer would. I mean, we'd love to look at it, but I think we're not going to pay that same premium for the privilege. Whereas for the Chinese clients of ours, they hold that iconic view for a much higher price tag. Whereas a local buyer will prefer a north-facing backyard instead of a west-facing backyard, and have a larger land size, with a bigger backyard. There's a different value, I think, which is what we saw on 63 Vaucluse Road, where all of our registered bidders were Chinese, and they put that value, higher value on being able to see the Harbour Bridge.
So on a Fin review yesterday, one buyer's agent mentioned that he was very stressed. A lot of Chinese buyers, especially mentioning Bellevue Hill, were overpaying for properties. He mentioned pretty much 3 properties. One was the one in Bennelong that sold for 14, one was 5 Fairweather, and one was 68 to 70 Kumbala Road. But the interesting thing is, number one, 61.5 million was paid by a local, and number 2, the underbidders at 5 Fairweather, the one that went over 20 and one at 19 were locals. How do we explain that?
I think also when you're looking at the media, they are going to skew it to make a story out of it. Sometimes it is a lot more favourable and they'll get more clicks if they'll say that it's being bought by an international person, calling a spade a spade.
But the thing is, only international people in the media is Chinese. They don't say it's Italian, it's a German.
I mean, look, there are a lot of properties being bought by Chinese purchasers at the moment, but I think the media blows it up a lot more than it actually is. Some
of the more prolific houses are getting bought by Chinese, and you're not just going to write about Semi and Randwick a lot of the time. It's those really nice, bigger homes, and if there's a story to write and there's a big bunch of Chinese out there bidding on the house, something to write about.
I had a chat with a reporter from the AFR about a month ago, and she said that she had to be careful when writing the article because when she mentions a Chinese buyer, are they someone that doesn't have their residency? Are they someone that's been here for 20, 30, 40 years, maybe even longer than some other people, like really ingrained people? So there's so there's that whole spectrum.
No, it's funny because even on the papers, I've been recognised as a buyer's agent, majority of servicing international buyers, but 100% of my buyers have a permanent residence or local citizenship. If there were any other nationality, we'll be classified locals.
I think it comes back to the eastern suburbs is highly appreciated by Chinese clients, so naturally probably more buyers out there for that premium product.
东区唯一华人背景 Tier 1买家中介，让华人在东区真正拥有优质房屋资源。